So first of all, I would like to thank everyone who joined us today, and I know that a lot more people will be joining us. Um, we'll give them some time. In the meantime, I just wanted to say once again, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. It's a real pleasure to have you with us today, especially today because I think the topic that we will be discussing today is very exciting. I'm not sure how about you, but I personally feel very excited about trends in learning and development, and it's you training professionals actually who are shaping that future of the learning and development field. So let's all get excited, and our presenter today will be Caroline Mwazi. I'm pretty sure that if not all of you, a lot of you know Caroline because she already delivered lots of webinars on the GLC platform, and she is also a seasoned IFC master trainer and IFC LPI trainer and assessor. She's the founder of Huru Consult, a training consulting firm based in Kenya. And believe me, we have a lot to learn from Caroline, so it's a great pleasure to have her back. But in the meantime, as always, I must remind you that this session is being recorded, and we will post the recording of this session on the GLC website. And if you're joining us for the first time, perhaps I would like to let you know that the recordings of all the sessions, all the webinars that we held to date can be found on the GLC website. So if you go to GLC, there is an option Learn, and there you can find an option Webinars in French and Webinars in English. So choose whatever you like. These recordings are available absolutely free of charge. You can search for the topic that you're most interested in, or you can search by the presenter and watch and empower yourself and your colleagues. Now, when typing questions in chat, please send them to everyone, unless, of course, you target a specific individual. As you already know, you have been muted by default when you logged in. However, if you would like to join a live discussion, please just raise your hand virtually. And I think the topic of today's webinar kind of warrants for a live discussion and your contribution. So please be active participants in this webinar. And as always, we would be most grateful if at the end of the webinar, you could provide your feedback and propose new topics by following the link that we will share with you at the end of the webinar. So we'll put it in chat. Okay. Now I have some exciting news to share with you. It was just this morning that we shared with our own GLC team that we finally launched the new course, and this course is called Coaching for Improved Performance. So this course fits in the wedge of the training lifecycle that is called Supporting the Transfer of Learning. This is a self-paced course, and it is available in English and in French. It includes 11 modules and 2 assignments, and each of these modules will take approximately 1 hour to complete. So I can tell you this is a very intensive course. There is a lot of information there, and if you're going to take this course, and by the way, it's available free of charge, and you can take it at any time. I will share the link with you in just a moment. So if you're going to take this course, I strongly encourage that you encourage you to pace yourself. Don't rush through the course. Give yourself time to absorb the information that you will be learning through the course. And I hope you will benefit from it. However, if you're not the kind of person who likes learning on your own in a self-paced manner, then there is an option always to attend the professional coach certification program or course that is being offered by one of our master trainers, by Adora Ayuade. So Adora is running a training consulting firm, Easy37. She's based in Nigeria, and Adora used to be the president of the International Coaching Federation Nigeria chapter. So she has lots of experience in coaching, and she will be offering the coaching training in person starting April 28th. So you still have some time to sign up for that particular session if you're interested. Now, I don't see any French speakers among those of you who joined us so far, but if you know someone who might be interested, then I just wanted to remind everyone that we are offering the Designing and Developing Learning course in French. So it will be offered in French for the very first time, and it will be offered for anyone who would like to become an instructional designer. And similar courses in English will be offered soon by our other master trainers in designing learning. Now, in other news, if you're interested in becoming a trainer or in getting certified as a trainer, there are lots of opportunities for you to do so. So I encourage you to visit the events section on GLC and search for Facilitating Learning Online and In-Person course, which is offered currently by Adeola Babatunde. So she's offering this course in May, August, and November, and by Sandra Ichinacho. So she's offering it in July and October. And Sandra likes to split her audience into those who have a lot of experience. So she calls that group or cohort agile group, and those who have little experience in facilitating learning. So depending on where you stand, you may choose to join either the growth cohort or agile cohort. So again, please visit the events section on GLC or reach out to us for further information if you're interested. And now it is my great pleasure to welcome back Caroline Mwazi. So Caroline, as I said, is an IFC certified master trainer. She is an IFC LPI TPMA trainer and assessor. She's also the LPI certified online learning facilitator and designer of online learning. As I mentioned, she is the founder of Huru Consult, and she's the chief change catalyst at the same company. We have a lot to learn from Caroline. She has a lot of experience and wisdom. So Caroline, welcome back to GLC. The floor is yours, and I hope everyone enjoys this webinar. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you very much, Anna. And hi, everybody. Good to be back again. I know it's been a bit of a while, but I hope you've all been well. And such a pleasure to see everybody here and to share with you this very exciting topic that I first began to speak on about 2 years ago at the ND Africa conference. And I'm excited just to share the updates that I've gained until now, and more importantly, to hear about your stories and experiences with this. So change, it has been said by JFK, he said that change is the law of life, and those who look only to the past or the present are certain to miss the future. So out of this webinar, you should be able to outline global learning and development trends, to evaluate their suitability locally, and to adapt them to your organization and practice, which will lead to you having greater impact in the work that you're doing as a trainer and as a learning and development specialist. So we're going to look at the landscape before COVID or earlier on, and we'll look at more recent trends, what's been happening, challenges being faced, the opportunities that we all have. Of course, as I said, I'd love to hear your stories in terms of the experiences you've had in your different spaces. And let me try to put on my video. And also the actions that you can take in your different spaces, in your different locations to embrace the trends. So this will help you to just be aware of new things that are happening, and then also to be aware of the opportunities and challenges that you face, and to leverage, of course, on the trends and help you also to remain at the cutting edge of what you're doing as a learning and development specialist, so that you can have better served clients, being able to add value to them, not running way ahead of them, but bringing them into new practices and new things that you can do, new ways of learning. And this will, of course, improve your profile and lead to more opportunities for you. Awesome. So even as we get started, you can type some of the trends that you've observed as well. It's important to think about the landscape and to think about where we are coming from. So before COVID, I think a lot of things across the world done in largely face-to-face. So learning was largely face-to-face. and it was trainer, facilitator led, and paper-based resources is what we were using. And there was also some e-learning. So you can pause there and just see, did anyone else have a different experience? Did you have limited virtual events as well? In some, depending on what country you are in or how advanced learning was there, some of you working in corporate organizations, I know before COVID, were um, already doing virtual learning. So what did that look like? I remember when I was doing my master's program, it was online and it was not, we were doing it using chat. I apologize, there's a car outside, but it was, but that's what happened, right? So we had limited virtual events. In some spaces, in some corporate organizations, we had already started doing self-paced learning. But if you remember, it was very clunky and very word-based, and the videos were very robotic as well. So we've certainly come a long way. So what was the experience where you were?
Caroline, we cannot hear you now.
I was waiting for some answers to come through. So if you could type your answers in chat. Yes. Because it seemed that you couldn't hear me when I had my headset on. So I'd rather not use it. Hopefully we won't have any more noisy vehicles outside. Thank you. So what were some of your experiences? Please share your answers in chat so that we can see. Or is it, are we able to use chat?
Yes, Caroline, we're able to use chat. I'm just wondering if the participants can hear you clearly, though. Maybe not everyone could hear the question.
Okay, so I'll ask the question again. What was the experience at your end before COVID? Did you have a different experience? Did you have other things that were happening? Or is it already a memory? I'm trying to project so that you can hear me better. Is my sound better now?
Maybe we can hear from the participants. I don't know. There's a lot of interference, it seems. Like this sound doesn't come off clearly.
Okay. I'll just try my headset again and see if that works. I suspect that maybe, I don't know if they can hear. Please type in where you are logged in from if you can hear. Chat. Okay. So as we're waiting to see everybody's responses where you're logged in from, allow me to carry on. Okay, so we have some answers coming through. Yes. Okay, thank you. Good to see your answers starting to come through. So we have, okay, so I'm having an issue with my chat, just trying to read everything, but let me see if I can. A bit scattered, understandable. Thank you, Ebru, for that feedback. Largely face-to-face training with hard copies of training materials. And we have someone logged in from Istanbul. Yes, so thank you. Thank you, OK, for confirming that at least the chat is working. And it's true, it was largely face-to-face with hard materials. Just yesterday, I was looking at some of the hard materials I had and looking for some old training I had done that I'll need to do next week. And I was just amazed at the size of the manuals that we had. Some of them were as wide as 3 to 4 inches. lots of material, and it's years since I turned those pages. So that was the reality. Largely face to face with lots of hard copy materials. You had to travel from one place to another to attend training programs. Sometimes you even had to travel to a different country, which was always exciting, I think, and fun, a good reason to travel. Then after COVID, that changed. So after COVID, we were thrust kicking and screaming into the digital working and learning space. So things changed. We were forced to go to Zoom, those of us who had not yet. And I was already using GoToMeeting and GoToWebinar with a client that I support. And so I already had experience with that. Life really changed because instead of just working that way with that one client, I now started working like that. We went to WebEx meeting, WebEx train, and I got Zoom for my company, and that's what we've been using ever since. A lot of businesses also went to using Teams and other collaborative platforms. There was also a move to Google Meet, which at that point didn't have too many features. Nowadays has many, many more features as well. So we were thrust into the digital working and learning space. We can say now that we've embraced the changes. The normal is no longer new. This is normal, and this is the way we live and work. And really, it has now become business as usual. And what has happened in the L&D space is that L&D is becoming very much more strongly linked to strategy. The other thing that we are finding is that hybrid work, which was new or newish at this time, around 2020, 2021, has now become permanent. You have some colleagues in the office, other colleagues are working from home. They're not in the office, all of them at the same time. You find that there are some pick days when they want to be in the office, when they want to be at home. And that's also how events and learning and meetings very often are happening. So permanent hybrid work, an ongoing transition to digital. So you find that there are upgrades of different platforms being used, devising new ways of working. One of the challenges has been how do we make sure that our team members are actually productive when they're at home, that they're actually working in different ways, both ethical and non-ethical have been found to do that. With learning, some of the things that have been put in place is not being able to fast track any training material, but being able to post that you have to go through every page and every video in order to be certified as having completed a module. So tracking with learning, I remember when I was doing my course, that's the becoming a certified online learning facilitator, there was some debate as to the ethics of WebEx being able to monitor the attention spans of participants. But the reality is that there's been an ongoing transition to digital hybrid and even blended learning. And blended learning has been recognized as one of the best ways of learning. So digital, we know, which means that you're learning on a digital platform as opposed to in person. Hybrid is where at the same time you have some participants engaged live and others who've joined in from remote locations. Then blended learning is where you combine digital learning and also in-person learning at different times. So you might have a course that has some sessions that you come in person to do them or you join live online, then some reading material and other recorded material that you do in a self-paced way. And then at the end of it all, you're recognized as having completed the course. You also have synchronous and asynchronous learning. Of course, with synchronous learning, that's live learning, whether it's online or in person. The trainer or the facilitator is there with the participants and you're learning at the same time, whereas asynchronous is where you do it not at the same time, like the self-paced learning that we talked about. So lots of options have emerged. And I, as an instructional designer, I was very excited and still am in the different ways I can create a course. Right now, I'm developing a business course that will be blended. So we'll have some live sessions, there'll be coaching as well, and we'll also have a number of virtual learning and office hours. So there's no limit to what we can do. There's lots that is available. So some of the things that have emerged as well has been the move digital as well, and there's been lots of digital support tools as well. There's been mobile learning, and some of the discussions around this has been using smartphones and dumb phones for learning. Remember, I've received a number of courses in that way, and you're able to learn on the go. So when you are commuting, when you're waiting, you're still able to learn simply using the device on your hand. Then there's also been a lot of video, and this has also continued on to online platforms like YouTube, doing even shorts on TikTok. So TikTok is not only for dancing, it can be used to share short information, using YouTube, of course, to post recordings of sessions. I use Vimeo, and for my private in-house courses, it's only available to the participants of the program. And then also you find there are meeting platforms as well, which have been used. Of course, you well know Zoom is one of them, WebEx, of course, which is what we're using as well. And then you find that many are using learning management systems, which are either bought off the shelf, like I used Talent LMS, but others are being custom made for organizations. And then you find that some organizations are also going digital in terms of the learning record store, storing details of courses people have done in organizations, so that you're able to know at the touch of a button how many courses has Carol done, of the courses she's supposed to do, which ones are done, which ones are not done, when is the last time she attended training, and so on, which makes a lot of material which previously was held in files and also folders being easily available and being able to use that interactively as well. So really improving information management of learning. And then, of course, I've already spoken about video learning. Some of the more exciting tools are like holograms, like using, like a good example of that is actually Cisco Holo, where you're able to facilitate live from a totally different location. This is very expensive, so very few organizations have it. But I could be right here in Kenya and I'm speaking to a class in the UK or in Egypt in a totally other place, and I'm there as a presence. So there's a digital projected presence of me teaching, engaging with the learners, listening to their questions, and it's like I'm there in person, but I'm not. It's just a digitally engineered image of me. So very exciting, has also been used for presentations and has also been used in entertainment, but you find holograms becoming increasingly popular. And I believe as they continue being used, the price, they won't be as expensive as they were before, which means we won't have to keep traveling to be in a conference or to be in a training session, but we'll be able to still engage, see if we're there live. Then, of course, there's also virtual reality, which has been used extensively as well, where you find participants putting on some special headsets, which allow them to see and interact with in a virtual space, in a virtual environment. Very useful, like if you're not able to travel, but you can visit places like museums, like houses, old houses, historical locations, and experience through the visual, right? So it's like you see and hear, but you're not actually there. So that's virtual reality, very, very used. And then augmented reality has been used a lot in engineering and medicine, where you find that there's the item is there, but it's not really there, but it looks like it's there. So for instance, probably a diagram of a heart that you're able to cut, or you actually simulate that you are cutting it, and then you're able to see the inner parts well laid out in real proportions, and to learn as opposed to doing it live in a theater and so on. So all these are some of the new exciting new developments which have happened. I'd love to see your questions and your comments. And then, of course, there's artificial intelligence. ChatGPT is only one of it. As trainers, we're able to make slides now using AI. We're able to even transcribe our lessons using AI. I know, like if you put your videos on Alter AI, you're actually able to transcribe them. And that's one of the methods I'm using to write one of my books. So still, you can also use AI to edit your content, to also improve on it, to even help you write reports. There's a lot. And I'd love to hear what are some of the ways that you have used AI, not only Chat GPT, but other forms of AI to just enhance your practices as a trainer. Please share in chat even as we continue. Thank you. Another important thing that has happened is for workers, learners, professionals to have more than their core skill. So they could have been probably trained, for example, as an accountant, but you still need to have additional skills like maybe financial modeling, in addition to your accounting skills, or being able to analyze other data, not only financial data, and so on. And so you're finding that workers now have to reskill, or they need to upskill. Reskilling means to get totally new skills, or upskilling as well means to enhance and to improve on the skills that you already have. I could say, as professional speakers, people who get paid to speak, we always need to upskill our speaking and communication skills. I'm always reading up on speaking, I'm always practicing. I attend courses still just to enhance how I'm doing. And even as trainers, we need to skill. When we needed to pivot onto online platforms, we needed to skill. I remembered I had to spend hours and hours on WebEx Train, later on Zoom, just to learn the ins and outs of the platforms. And so we need to reskill, we need to upskill. And then also in the learning and development space, there's a big push towards micro learning. So as opposed to teaching an entire body of information that may not, half of which may not be used, you only teach exactly what is needed. And that is what is known as micro learning. There's a focus on soft skills, which are also known as core skills. And especially now with workers, professionals being remotely located, how do you ensure that their performance levels are high, their emotional intelligence is high, that they're still able to connect as a team, that they're able to deliver on the results that they need to, that they're able to work unsupervised, that they're able to communicate effectively, even though they are remotely located and doing a lot of things virtually. So focusing on core skills, as they are more increasingly being known as now, has become key, as well as curiosity-driven learning, again driven by COVID. A lot of people took up new things, for instance, learning a new language, or learning about a place, or other things, right? So I went into acting as well. So I just began to refine my acting, and I've done a lot with that as well. So curiosity-driven learning. You also found learners learning because they wanted to learn, because they were curious about a particular area, not because they were being forced to do so by the organization or by the demands of their work. So really, there's also been a push for great learning experiences. So it's not just enough to be a facilitator standing in front of the learners with a flip chart and your PowerPoint presentations. It's all about experiences, which could be using tools that are available, everyday tools, but also using virtual platforms for immersive learning experiences, using games, also simulations, just to enhance the learning. While all that is happening, learning remains learning, and there's also been a major shift towards robust return on investment. By that I mean that when an organization invests in learning, invests in a learning platform, invests in the content that is put on the platform, many organizations are increasingly keen now to ensure that there's the right return on investment and the desired impact on the ground as a result of the learning thing. So let's see, I think there was something in chat. Yes, so there's a post there by Anna on artificial intelligence, very, very useful. Thanks for sharing that, Anna. And I'm sure we'll all be able to navigate to it later on after the webinar. And there's lots of material available as well. You want to go to trainingmag.org. Anna, if you could please post the link, trainingmag.org. they've got tons of webinars on using AI to enhance training for learners. Having said that, one thing I know is that learning will always remain learning. But now there are new and interesting ways of designing and delivering learning. And as learning professionals, we need to embrace them as opposed to wishing that things go back to how they used to be, because the fact is that things don't go back to how they were before. Thank you. Good. So what has been your response to the trends at the local level? What are some of the things you've seen and excuse me, I have a sneeze coming up. And what has been your response at the local level? What you may not have done them yourself, but what are some of the things that you've seen at the local level in your different spaces? Thank you. We can have one of us unmute if that's possible. Anna, please guide us. Otherwise, please share your responses in chat. What have you seen? Have people gone back to doing things the old ways, or nowadays a mix of it? And what has your personal response been? Thank you. Waiting for your answers to come through. I can see some answers have come through. Does anyone want to share on the mic before we read the answers which have come through, please? Just raise your hand and Anna will give you the opportunity. Okay, let's see what's in chat. So we have okay. Okay, thanks for sharing. People embracing learning agility, people using every opportunity to learn. Thank you. What are some of the ways that they've done this? Thank you. Okay, for sharing. And anyone else can share as well. What are some of the observations that you've seen in your respective spaces? Thank you. Anyone else? George, I see your hand is up. Anna, can we unmute George, please?
Caroline, thank you. Hello, Anna. In terms of learning and development trends on the local level, meaning in Eastern Europe, Romania especially, I think we have seen wealth of training happening, especially online, but also other types of learning like conferences, on-site conferences. But what is I think relevant, especially for me, is the fact that the area of the sustainability, the climate change, global warming, so on, biodiversity loss, and so on, is more and more present and associated with these types of learning. And also, I noticed the advancement of the AI technology
Yes.
in these types of training, and also in the self-paced learning. I think this is also another area where the learning and development, I think, has more because it's important, especially related to this impact of the climate change. It is and we are facing an explosion of information in this area. We are
Yes.
facing the need to update our own knowledge through self-paced learning. Thank you.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing
Welcome.
about the move to online learning, the conferences as well, lots of those happening. Before there were lots of virtual conferences, but as soon as we could attend in person, we do. A lot of conferences, though, are hybrid nowadays, so you don't always have to travel. But it's amazing how people still go for the in-person engagement, because that, I think, will always be richer than virtual engagement. And of course, thanks also for pointing out about in terms of topics to sustainability and climate change. You're absolutely spot on there as well. So thanks for sharing. We had a few more answers coming through in chat. So, okay. So thank you. I think OK was explaining that micro-learning. Just, it's good to see you. So micro-learning is also taking shape, especially through podcasts and short videos, which someone can download on their phone and listen when they have time. This means they learn even when they're in remote places. And that's very useful, especially in places where there are challenges of bandwidth. So you might be probably in an urban place where you're able to download, and when you go to a remote location, then you're able to use that as well. Thank you. And then, yes, thank you. Well, I'm just trying to make sure that I haven't missed anything. I think we are good. Justa is also saying that she sees gamification is appealing a lot to the younger people, and you're liking it a lot too. Of course, yeah. You need to learn the rules, you need to learn to play, but once you do, there's a lot that you can learn on there. Recently, I was doing a talk on financial management, and I did refer the attendees cash flow, where you actually play simulated game about decisions that you're making about your cash, how you're using it, the investments you're doing, and how soon you become financially free. You're playing with total strangers, it's online, but you learn still, and you're able to apply that learning in your real life. Thank you. So yes, very good answers there, and thank you all for sharing as well. Brilliant. Good. So that's your response at the local level. So with regard to the responses as well, it's also to see what's been happening. So some of the things that I've noticed is that there's a mixed response, and this is both locally and internationally. There are those who preferred things the way they were and were very happy when the restrictions were lifted and we could go back to doing things the same old way. But many also have realized that, this is the new normal. In fact, as I said earlier, the normal is no longer new. So there's a mixed response. So some have embraced the trends and recognized the benefit of it. Investments have been made by many organizations, particularly because of recognizing how much cheaper it is to do things virtually, to invest in self-paced learning once, as opposed to having to keep on paying for training. So investments have been made and continue to be made. And learning has increasingly been recognized, as I mentioned earlier, as a key support to strategy as well. So you find that learners themselves have had to go through some transformations. They've adopted to the remote learning, to virtual learning, the digital learning space. They've done that. Another thing is that they have also adopted more independent learning. As we talked earlier about the curiosity-driven learning happened, and that continues to happen. Anytime I have a question, I don't look for a course, I just go onto YouTube, or I just go online and see if I can get the information I need for that, right? So there's more independent learning. I know we do that already as trainers and facilitators, instructional designers, but learners themselves are doing the same. They're also doing it to validate some of the things that we tell them in the session to get a different perspective, and that helps them to learn. You also find there's a lot of sharing of information, peer learning and collaboration. There's heightened curiosity as well, and learning on the go, as we've seen even from the answers that came through in chat. And there's a deeper uptake and deeper retention of learning. Why? Because they're learning. Because they're open to the learning. Remember earlier on we talked even about the micro learning. Because I'm learning, because I'm ready, I'm open to learning, and therefore my retention is. And some, reality is that some are still adapting, just as some trainers, instructional designers, and facilitators are still adapting. So my encouragement to all of us is that let's stop adapting, let's embrace, let's begin with baby steps, but let's start exploring. If you're already using Zoom as a platform, why don't you try posting some of your content on a training platform? There's Udemy. You can also post it on Teachability, I believe is its name, and also Thinkific. So there are many platforms where you can post your content for a wider audience to interact with. So our space really is that, I mean, our response needs to be that, yes, it's a new space, and, there's new, so doing things, we need to learn new skills, absolutely, I mentioned that. Embrace the learning platforms, I've mentioned a few, Thinkific, Teachability, and others. Get really proficient on the ones you mostly use. Like I've had to become very good on WebEx. I've had to become super good on Zoom because that's the one I primarily use. And I can facilitate comfortably on Teams. Another reality is that for many of us as trainers and facilitators, we were very frustrated that we could not see or engage with our learners. So our learners are remote, they're away from us. So part of the challenge is that they're just that they're away. But the other one might be that they may not be engaged as we would want them to be. I know many of us are guilty of being in a session and at the same time you're looking after the children, or you're cooking, or you're trying to do something like that, right? And then also you find that there are cross-cultural issues. So I may be speaking to an audience, let's say in India, and I make a joke that would land very well here in Kenya, but it's not even understood, let alone landing to a different audience. So we need to take those into account, but the goodness, and I always like embracing the positive as opposed to the negative, is that your experience is enriched. Because you cannot live, I mean, you may not leave your country, but you go ahead to engage with people across the borders in other countries, and you can learn a lot about one another. But let's always be sensitive, particularly when speaking to international audiences. And there's some things that might not translate well into that other culture. So being sensitive about your learners is good. And okay, you're asking about the platforms. One is, I'll type them in chat. There's Udemy, Thinkific, and just hold on, finding my chat box. Okay, so there's Udemy. And many of them, they'll allow you to post some of your content for free. And then there's also Teachability as well. And for LMS, the one that I do very well is the LMS, but there are others. There's one that I don't remember its name, because I remember when I did a comparison between talent LMS and another one. But if you just LMSs, you'll be able to get one and just do a comparison and see what works for you. Many of them have free trials, so take advantage of that, and just also force yourself into the digital space. Okay. So the cross-cultural issues I've mentioned, because I hope that helps. Okay. And then be creative in adapting the content. GLC has wonderful self-paced learning for this. There's from live in the classroom to live in person, and other material that you can use that's available on the GLC platform. There's also creating the 24/7 classroom, which is all about self-paced learning where your learners learn in their own time, and then there's uh, mixing options for blended learning. So there's lots of material available on the GSC platform that you should take advantage of and just learn at your own pace. So yes, creative content adaptation, and those tools will help you do that very, very well. And you find that there's a varied uptake. Just as the learners have a varied uptake, even the trainers, we do have a varied uptake. What I found for myself, I was open, I was also curious, and therefore I went forth and I learned and I embraced an entirely new way of designing and delivering learning. It's important, especially as learners become younger and younger, to adopt new ways of learning, because even schools have adopted this, and if you don't want them to push them back into the 20th century, simply because we've refused to adapt to what's happening in learning and development space. So there's ongoing adaptation, of course. Whenever you're working with a new organization that wants you to use a different tool, then you need to learn it. And as I said, you need to learn it very well. I like telling, during the TOT, I like telling the participants, find a platform that you want to use and go and play on it. By play, I mean pretend that you're running a session and try all the buttons. Try to see what happens if I do this. How do I create a breakout room? How do I bring participants back from a breakout room? If I want to use an interactive tool like Mentimeter, how do I project that? How do I make it happen? Am I finding myself getting stuck transitioning from video to PowerPoint and back to video, or am I able to do it easily? Can I speak into the PowerPoint? What are the latest updates that have come? And so many things. I'm always learning new things, and it's important for us as L&D experts to be open to learning and to just learning from one another as well. If you have a colleague who's good in one thing, spend an hour with them. I did this earlier with some of the master trainers. I became very good in Zoom. And one of the master trainers had not used Zoom before. So he called me and we did a session. And imagine, out of that, I now have a longer session on how to navigate Zoom. It's actually called Zoom Like a Boss. So new material comes out of the things that we do. So not only learn, but share with others as well. Because really, there's increased acceptance that there are new ways of learning and we need to embrace them. It doesn't mean the old ways don't work, but I'm like, if you can have more tools in your toolbox as a learning and development specialist, why not do that? Thank you. So you want to read the writings of Cindy Haggett. She's a learning specialist based in the UK, and every year she writes the state of virtual learning. So this is the one that she did in 2022, where she said, we're still moving, and this was 2 years after COVID, where she wrote that we're still moving into a new era with virtual training as the gateway to immersive learning experiences. There is no limit. I always say that. The only limits are the ones we place on ourselves. Having said that, I like to say that it's good to move at your client's pace as well. So don't put them kicking and screaming into what they're not ready for. Take into account also the bandwidth issues where you are, and ensure that they will be able to have a pleasant, even though it's immersive, but it needs to be pleasant. And ultimately, regardless of the platform you use, even if you insist on staying in the old ways, learning must happen, and learning must be engaging and interactive. So we'll pause there for any questions before we move to looking at the challenges and how we can navigate the challenges and the opportunities. Thank you. I think I've addressed all the comments that came. Yeah, so do we have any questions or comments? You can share them in chat. We'll come back to them towards the end of our session. Thank you. So we're faced with both challenged. Sorry, we're faced with both challenges and opportunities. The challenges are real and the opportunities are real. And I'd like us to do a short discussion on them. So what do you think are some of the challenges that we face? This was supposed to have been annotation, but we can do it as a discussion, right? So let's start with challenges. What challenges have have you observed that to embracing the trends in learning and development? Please share your answers in chat, and one of us can raise your hand and unmute yourself so that we can hear you. Thank you. Well, what challenges have we faced? And then you can make notes on the opportunities, but let's start with the challenges first. Thank you. Please raise your hand to unmute yourself and share. Otherwise, waiting for your answers to come through in chat. Thank you. Yeah, and okay, good. Thank you for your answers. Go ahead.
Yeah, one of the biggest challenges with these trends in tech is that there's suddenly a flood of information. There's so much out there from all over, everywhere, and sometimes you find participants actually getting lost in data and so much, and also us as facilitators getting lost in, okay, so there's just so much out there, and getting the right information for the right audience is becoming not an easy task anymore because you have to go through so much. I think that's one of my biggest ones.
Thank you for sharing, Justa. And indeed it is. There's so much information available to the point that now it's becoming really important to curate your learning, to really decide what do I want to focus on and to do so. Even as trainers, when we're developing material, to just go for exactly what we need. Because I don't know if you're like me, when I'm developing new content or modifying older content, I find myself sometimes getting lost in all the details that Justin has mentioned. Absolutely true. Thanks for sharing. Anyone else? Yeah. And as we wait for anyone else to share, we have a few contributions in chat. Just heading there to see them. The opportunity, okay, so that's opportunity. So let me start with some of the challenges. Our tech advantage is very rapid. It seems a new tool. Yes, it's out every second. You're just learning chat GPT and all of a sudden there are 5 others you need to learn. Catching up as an L&D professional is tricky. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, okay, for that. Then we have Anna, who is saying, for me, one challenge in the same velocity. Yes, absolutely. Of the technology changes. Great. Yeah. Thank you. So I think we're done with those. Let's see if there's anything else. And then Anna, now you've gone on through the opportunities. The opportunities is having access for a lot of number of tools. Yes, we have that. Do we have to take them all? I don't think so. But we need to know what's out there and how it can work for us. Because I think every opportunity, I mean, every new tool needs at least a look. You don't have to take it, but you need to know what's out there. And especially in the L&D space, we talk to one another. So if you hear something that's interesting, go and explore it. You don't have to take it up, but at least you know that it's there. Thank you. I see George had raised his hand earlier on. Could we unmute him, please? Go ahead, George.
Okay. So besides these challenges that we are facing directly as teachers and lecturer, I think we also have to consider the challenges faced by our audience and especially by the potential audience. And I'm talking here about the poverty plague that is blocking the access to education to many young people. And I think this is one of the most important issue. I think, for instance, in Romania, we have unfortunately the last uh, ranking. We are the last one in the ranking, or the first one, let's say, in the poverty ranking. So in the European Union, for the children. And we know that the children, the young people, are the future basis of a society, and if they don't have the necessary means to access this training, to access, they even don't have the means to access the public schools, uh, less the private training programs. So I think this is an area where I think the government has to step in, uh, and try to solve this issue, because with living in poverty means also lack of education. Thank you.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for sharing that very important point that we need to think about our learners. And we need to think about even the pace of technology and technology adoption in the different countries, and poverty is a reality. I train entrepreneurs, not only trainers, I also train entrepreneurs. And there's some parts of my country too that are quite remote. So you're there insisting that they must all join on WhatsApp, but they don't have smartphones. So I think for us is to find creative ways of working with what we have. And the first time I shared this, and I'm going to share it again, I said governments do need to play a part in that, but there's also a part for private sector to play. Like I know that some of the initiatives that the government here has done is to buy very cheap smartphones and distribute them, but still not everybody in the country has that, because you may have the smartphone, but you have the place to go and charge it as well. How stable is the electricity where you are? So yes, indeed, there are challenges and opportunities. So far, only Anna has talked about the opportunities, having access to a lot of tools. Do we have any other opportunities that you've observed? We can share that in chat, and then we can move on to just summarizing that discussion about the opportunities. Because yes, there are challenges and we must navigate them, and there are opportunities. And I think one of the biggest challenge is that we may be ready for the change. Is our audience ready? If the audience is primarily made of people in their 40s, 50s, and 60s, may not be as ready to adapt to them. I remember, like, sometimes I still have to help my mom to log on to Zoom if we want to have a family meeting. But we found a way around that. We simply do a WhatsApp call. All she has to do is to answer, and we're good to go. So there are different things that we need to do as trainers, as you well know, with the IFC FLO TOT, that is facilitating learning online and in person. We actually have a prep session where we take the learners through the Zoom platform, and we make sure that they're totally comfortable with the Zoom platform before the course begins. It just makes everything easy. And for those who are open to learning, we find that it doesn't take long for them to adapt to it. So there are real issues, there are real challenges and opportunities at the same time, and we should be aware. So some of the challenges is the limited smart devices in many locations. And then, as George mentioned, the issue of poverty. So can they afford even the bundles? Because in many places, internet is not cheap. In Kenya, it used to be very expensive. It's become cheaper depending on the service provider you're using. Some are cheaper than others, but it might be cheap and not reliable. So sometimes you have to weigh all that. And if people are not on Wi-Fi, then it becomes a bit expensive. Even in other countries, in the UK, I've had to pay for the internet, and it's been very expensive at the same time. Then there's also limited, reliable, and affordable internet access. So we've talked about that. And then also power issues in many development and conflict restricted countries, you find that power is not always on. So I may have charged my devices, but now I run out of power. And then there's also slow uptake of digital learning, depending on the audience that you're speaking to. You can find in some places the literacy levels are low. So when there's poverty, education is low, as well as George has mentioned. So how do we then ensure that learning is happening? Depending on who you're training, I've trained farmers as well, and you really have to adapt your approaches to them. But many people do have at least a basic smartphone, so there's a lot you can do. I found also other programs where they use just the dumb phones, but they're able to have a USSD dial-in number where you're able to get material, or you simply use text, bulked SMSs to send reminders and to send learning material as well. I always say that where there's a will, there's a way. So find what works with you. Sometimes we might have participants having to walk to the one person who has the smartphone, and then they share the information, or buying a smartphone together that is shared by everybody. There's always a way out. But low literacy levels is also a challenge. We've talked about the overwhelming options. So where do I start? Do I go with Udemy or Thinkific or other platforms? Which is better than the other? Actually, do I even know what I want or what I'm looking for? So just start and then build up from there. And then there's new platforms, new tools to learn, which means there's a learning curve. How fast you come up, that depends on you, of course. Even for the learners, for the participants, they may be aware or maybe even have a smartphone, but they've never logged on to Zoom, Teams, or Google Meet. So that's new for them, and sometimes new can be intimidating for learners, but even for us as learning and development experts. You also find sometimes that there's a focus on the operational rather than the strategic. So let's get the training done, as opposed to, are we meeting return on investment? Are we achieving the organizational or the project long-term goals ultimately? Are we achieving the impact that we want? So while there's still an increase and a focus on being strategic and on return on investment, in some places it is still lagging behind. But with the challenges, we have opportunities, one of which is that wider audiences are reached cost effectively. With digital learning, with online learning platforms, you find that you can reach many more people at less cost. They don't have to travel. All they need to do is to pay for bundles. And nowadays, they're very for internet bundles. And nowadays, those have become increasingly affordable. So competition is good between internet services providers because we win as the consumers. You can go to town in terms of the different ways you can design learning. But as I always say, always put the learner at the center. So don't do all this, adding on all these bells and whistles and totally losing your ultimate user, that is the learner. So, but still, don't limit yourself. Be innovative in designing learning. Know that they are curious and independent learners, so take advantage of that and give them even extra that they can read on their own or consume, watch on their own, and make lifelong learning an adventure. So see yourself as a spark that begins a fire. So you are the catalyst, you're the one that starts off something, and then the reaction actually continues and accelerates. And focus on transformation for achievement of strategy as opposed to just delivering knowledge or content, right? So focus on transforming the person, not just their knowledge and skills, but also their attitudes, so that there's overall transformation. Another big one is tangible M&E and ROI. And I'm actually coaching a young trainer on another program I'm involved in, and he's designing an app, an online app that is going to be conducting needs assessments, right? And we've been talking for a number of weeks, and it was just this week when we were having our session, and I told him, hang on, if it can do needs assessments, it can also measure impact of learning. And so you can find, apps, online apps and other tools that you can use just to enhance and also to speed up the things that you're doing as a trainer. So instead of designing paper forms and putting them on, you can actually use tools like maybe SurveyMonkey and so on, or even have a specific app designed for a specific industry if you're really entrenched in a particular industry, to not only conduct needs assessments, but also to measure and impact learning. So beyond the normal, and always ask yourself, is there something I'm doing that I should be digitalizing? Yeah, should I go digital with something, or should I also come up with ways of actually making everything that I'm doing as a training professional digital? So we're going to have a poll now. Before we do that, I see there's a comment in chat, so let's go to that. First of all, so this is again from OK. Tech advancement is very rapid. It seems a new tool is out every second. Catching up as an L&D professional is tricky. But I think, okay, it's better to just start the journey and then see where you go, as opposed to stay stuck where you are. And just I can answer that. Yes, GLC offers instructional design courses. You just need to register, and when the next cohort is running, you'll be able to do it. There's also, I believe there's a self-paced one as well. And now you found, and I think you're okay agreeing that leave no one behind is critical. Absolutely. Great. So there's an English comment here from okay. A lot of AI tools. Could you please highlight the must-have for L&D professionals? I'm doing an upskilling session next week, and it would be great to know which ones to focus on. Why don't we do that as a brainstorm? What are some of the must-haves that you've started using as learning and development professionals? I've used ChatGPT. I've seen trainers use, I don't know which one they use. I believe they still use ChatGPT to develop slides. The slides needed some adjustments, but they were actually done. There were slides which were done complete with the graphics and so on. So she got her son to do it. So I don't know exactly how that was done, but I thought that was an interesting thing to look at. Any other additions? The rest of you, please share as well. Thank you. I think that's it. Everything else we had. Great. Loving the conversation. Absolutely loving the conversation. Thank you very much. So there's Microsoft 365. Thanks for sharing. That was Justa. Yes, and I've answered the question about the instructional designer courses. Yeah. So let's do this poll. To what extent you have adopted it? I know I modified the question slightly. So let's launch the poll and get that. Okay. So the question we're asking here is, how poised are you? Yeah, how poised are you to take advantage of the opportunities? How poised are you to take advantage of the opportunities? So in other words, where are you? Are you the embracer? Or are you the one who wants things to go back to how they were? Or are you slowly embracing, or you're already on the adapting journey? Or you're advanced, you're well poised, or the future is now, you're there. You're there 100%. So let's see your answers coming through. And this is really great. I'm loving the interaction. It's really, really encouraging and very rich too. I'm learning from you as you're learning from me. Thank you. Let's have more answers coming through. Where are we? Well, I think everybody has participated, which is just brilliant. Yeah, people have actually participated. Thank you. So let me show the results so that we can all see. Okay, so there we are. So most of us are saying that, most of us are actually saying that the future is here, which is brilliant. Okay, so there's a few people who didn't answer, but we are well poised. So we are oscillating between adapting and well poised, which is excellent. Absolutely brilliant, right? None of us is at the point where we're saying the future is now, because we know that there's new stuff coming out all the time. So as long as we are adapting and well poised, I believe we're in a good place. At least none of us has indicated that we want things to go back to how they were, and we're slowly embracing, because indeed AI has made our lives much, much easier. learning and development experts, all the way from transcribing our materials that you can then use to write articles. So instead of having to type everything out, you can just use your transcribed webinars or sessions to simply write notes. You can use also, I know that people who write reports and then they go to AI, you can use ChatGPT for this to edit your reports and make it more professional sounding, particularly if you're reporting, let's say, in another language, you can do that. As I said earlier, you can use ChatGPT to develop slides on a particular topic, especially if it's a new topic as well. So there's a lot you can do. When you're writing an article, you can also use ChatGPT to edit it and make it sound more professional. If you're writing for a younger audience, you can say, edit this article for 18-year-olds or maybe 16-year-olds, and it will do that very, very well. What I like, though, is to add my hand on it. So normally, if I do anything on ChatGPT, I'll review it and make it mine, so that indeed it's not entirely been done by artificial intelligence, but it has my hand in it. Even if you write, let's say, a book or an article, or a blog post, it's always good, even if you're using AI, to always have your hand in it. So thank you very much for that. So as we bring our session to a close, let's look at some of the actions that we should embrace. And remember, you can share your questions in chat because we'll be coming to Q&A very shortly. What actions then can you take to embrace the trends? So we're looking at organizations and L&D professionals. As I always say, being a strategist, always be clear about where you want to go. Be very clear about what's happening now and just begin to take the steps. Remember, you're not taking the steps in a vacuum. You're taking them thinking about your end users, the organizations, their capabilities, your learners, and what is available to them. Of course, if you're working with an organization that's well able to support, provide the tools that your learners need to be able to effectively participate in the learning that you have. It could mean buying internet bundles for them, providing points where they can charge their devices. It could also mean, if need be, actually buying them the devices they need, which might be laptops or smartphones. So do everything you can to support your learners, ensure they're comfortable. You may need to provide a level of support, because even if you're introducing them to an LMS platform, they need to know how to log in, and they need to know where to go if they need any support. So be strategic. Where do we want to go? Where are we now? What do we need to do? The next thing you need to do is to evaluate what's available and what you're able to do, and the tools where you are as well. Then understand the stakeholders. What could be their constraints? They might not be able to do everything you want, but at least find some workarounds and ensure that whatever you're doing as a learning and development professional, it doesn't change. The tools may change, but your focus must always be to serve your clients and to support them in achieving their strategic objectives. So be very clear about the strategic objective for running the training program and keep this front and center in your mind. Focus on this even as you're conducting the needs assessments, developing the training material, delivering the training, and of course reporting and evaluating. Then make systematic progress towards the development that you need to do. You might need to do a course, you might need to work or get some coaching from somebody who's a few steps ahead of you. Do what you need to do and measure your progress regularly. Always interrogate your methods, always interrogate the tools that you're using. You'll be curious and creative, but I don't think I need to say that to learning and development professionals. I mean, that's the whole reason why we are here. We love to learn, we love to deliver learning, and we can increase our creativity as well and always iterate. When I look at what I did 1 or 2 years ago, I'm like, okay, why did I do it like that? I could have done it better like this. So always be iterating upwards. One question I always ask myself is, how do we do this better? How do we do this cheaper? How do we do this even faster? And it's really helping me to focus my materials and my sessions to ensure that the learners always get the best and that they're always engaged. Make sure you collaborate and share. When you share with other professionals in the same place, they'll share something with you, and together you'll enrich one another. And simply start and build up, and check, measure your progress consistently. Great. So some important questions that you need to ask yourself is, are we meeting the learner's learning preferences? Even if we need to get them to come up the curve, are we supportive about it? Other important questions is, are we effective in design, development, delivery, support, return on investment, and client engagement? We always need to have this in mind. Always interrogating our methods, our approaches, and our client engagement. Remember, right at the center of the training life cycle is partnering with clients, and we want to make sure we're doing that even if we're using digital methods to do so. Be clear about what you can improve and constantly iterate, and also ask yourself, what new approaches can we adopt? If you are working head down, head in a bowl, and not looking around, not looking over the fence at what other professionals are doing, you miss out on the new approaches. If you look at ChatGPT and all the other AI as intrusive, you'll never explore. So I encourage you, if you don't have a ChatGPT account, open one. Give a question and just see what comes out. And, give it material to edit for you and see what happens. And see if it's better than you or if you are better than it. Sometimes I do that and I'm like, my answer is better than yours, But do that, take advantage of what's there, because it does help us do our work better and faster. And I'm yet to try using it. Using it to make slides, but I will do, and I'll be happy to let you know how that goes. So yes, identify new approaches to adopt and take actions to always iterate upwards. So things for you to keep in mind is that you need to be strategic and always keep your learners at the center of everything that you're doing. That their learning experience is brilliant, that they are growing, they're applying what they have learned, and that ultimately there is the desired impact that knocks on to the strategic objectives of the organization. And always be systematic in your progress and always make sure that you're measuring. So that brings us to the end of our session. I'm happy to get to your questions and your comments. And as we wrap up, just to say that there are no limits, only those that we place on ourselves. So let us embrace the trends and enhance our L&D solutions to greater impact. So there you have it. We've looked at the L&D landscape before and now. We've looked at the trends, we've looked at the challenges and opportunities, and the actions to embrace. So what's one thing that you'll apply from the webinar? And let's also look at some of the questions that we have here. I think there was just the one from Justa. Would you mention any apps that help with impact evaluation? The ones that I've used so far have been designed. So normally I've used the SurveyMonkey, and we've done also focus groups as well, and others. Right now I don't know any apps, but I'll be happy to share with you that directly, Justa, because I know I have your contact, so we can talk offline. Thank you very much. And if anyone knows of any apps that can help with impact evaluation, by all means, just share. We're all learning from one another. Thank you. Any other questions? Or what's one thing that you've taken that you'll apply from the trends? What's one thing that you're looking to try as well? We'd love to hear that. Otherwise, I believe I'm done. There are a few resources that we'll share with you. So one is 5 trends in disrupting learning and development in 2022. This is from trainingmag.com, so you want to check that out. 10 learning and development trends from the HR director. Very useful and interesting reading there. I'm trying to get the latest report because I believe Cindy Haggett would have done one last year. So I'll just see if it is out yet. Sometimes there's a bit of a delay. I think I checked, the last time I did this webinar, I checked and it was still at 2022. but I'll see if there's a new one. And then a post-pandemic model with the future of training in mind. You must read that article. That's from trainingindustry.com. So great, we can stop there now for Q&A. Over to you, Anna. I don't think I missed anything in chat, but I may have. If I did, what questions do we have? Because I don't think there are any more questions. Thank you. Back to you, Anna.
Yeah, thank you so much, Caroline. So thank you for taking us to the future, and I hope that everyone is now feels more equipped to embrace that future. But just to remind you, since there were lots of questions about AI, and we understand that this is part of our reality right now, I just wanted to remind you that at some point we conducted a webinar on AI tools that you can use. And if you go to that particular website that I just posted in chat, there you will find links to various AI tools that you may start using as you craft your courses or you deliver your courses, et cetera, et cetera. So please take a look at the list of resources that is listed on that particular page. Next, just going back to my introduction, I wanted to share with you the link to the course that we just introduced, and that's the Coaching for Improved Performance course. So once again, for those who probably joined us a little bit later, this is the self-paced course, Coaching for Improved Performance. It has about 11 modules. It's available in English and in French, and the whole course will take you about 10 to 12 hours to complete. So once again, please pace yourself. Don't rush, right? So there is a lot of information there, but I just posted the link. And of course, we would be most grateful if you could please share your thoughts about today's webinar. So I'm putting the link to SurveyMonkey in chat. So please let us know what you liked about today's webinar, what you didn't like, and if you have any recommendations for us going forward. So we do read your comments, we take them very seriously, and we try to implement all your recommendations to the extent possible. And finally, if you're interested in more events, then I encourage you to visit the events page on GLC. So it does have some capacity building events that may be of interest to you, such as facilitating learning courses, certification opportunities, again, free webinars. And Caroline, do I understand correctly that in 2024, in September 2024, you will be leading the Learning and Development Conference in Kenya? So you will be this sort of the cheerleader, the chair of that conference, right? So if you want to say a couple of words about what to expect, and again, we will be talking about that going forward.
Absolutely. So we're honored to be the conference chair for the Learning and Development Africa Conference 2024. This has been hosted out of Ghana, where Margaret Jackson has been the conference chair for the last 4 years. So that's 2020, 2021, 2022, and 2023. I've spoken at 2020 and 2022 conference, so I am part of the family. And when the conference was coming to an end last year, they said, okay, so we've been in Ghana and West Africa for the last 4 times, iterations of the conference. So it's time for us now to go to a different location. So then they went to vote, and apparently they decided to do it in East Africa. And so that's how I've ended up being the conference chair. Very exciting putting it together. So for those of you who are based in Africa, it's just a hop to come to Kenya. And the theme of the conference is actually linked to a lot of the things that we've talked about here today. The theme of the conference is Embracing Tomorrow, Unlocking Africa's Possibilities. So Anna, I'll share the flyer with you so that you can have it, and we can post it as an event on the GLC event calendar. But there you have it, Embracing Tomorrow, Unlocking Africa's Possibilities. The conference is not only for those of us in Africa. All of you are more than welcome to come. It will not be held in Nairobi. I know many of you have been to Nairobi, but it will be in the lovely town that's in the Rift Valley called Naivasha. Beautiful place, very scenic, with lakes and flamingos and lots of fun and running places. But of course, we shall be at the conference, very serious. In the evening, we'll be able to enjoy Naivasha. So more than welcome, each and every one of you, and look out for further details about the conference. Thank you very much. Back to you, Anna.
Well, thank you so much, Caroline. And I'm just noting some of the comments. Okay, it's very kind of you. Okay says, aha, you actually sound like Margaret. I have sat under her training. Both of you are fantastic trainers. Indeed, indeed. So please look forward to that conference in September. We'll make an official announcement very soon. And as far as GLC webinars are concerned, so please plan to join us again in May. Yeah, so we will continue to talk about the future and shape it together with you.